How are we all? I hope all is well. My name is Sachin, and this is the Total Cricket Podcast, episode 2. So, yesterday I talked about the 5 things we learned from the ICC Champions Trophy 2017. Today I'm going to do a team review for all the teams' campaigns from the tournament. So, I hope you enjoy that. Just a quick note, the podcast is now on iTunes, so I'll be leaving the link to that. And also, you can check out our other platforms, which are SoundCloud and YouTube, and the Twitter page, which is where you'll find all the platforms. And the links to those will be in various places. Now, onto the episode. We're going to start with Group A and England. So, England coming into the tournaments were the favourites, the hosts. They've been playing the best cricket since the 2015 World Cup. We saw that they were at a low. They lost to Bangladesh, and it wasn't even in Asia, it was in Australia. And they did not make the knockouts in a format where it makes it very difficult for there to be an upset, and yet they still didn't make the knockouts. And now they've completely revolutionized their style. Really, I give them credit for it, but you have to think they were decades late on the trend. They were picking really test players in their one-day team, and they're like, hey, I've got a genius idea. Let's pick limited over specialists. Yeah, it's not like anyone's been doing that for the last 20 years. They were a bit slow on that trend, but they finally got it, and it's paid dividends for them with Owen Morgan steering the ship. They have done a great job since that World Cup. They've been very aggressive. They've been interesting to watch, and they've been really marked by their deep batting lineup, extremely powerful, and bowling where they hit the deck hard, and they have the variety of the spinner, the leg spinner, Adil Rashid as the trump card. So coming in, they were favourites, and they absolutely stormed to the group stage, absolutely stormed through. Bangladesh, they picked them off with ease, chasing down that 300. It was a canter, on that oval pitch, which was the best pitch in the tournament. It was a road. It was very easy. Joe Root was magisterial, as always. A great player to watch. In the second game, I thought they did very well against New Zealand. They were able to get 310 at Cardiff, which proved to be the most difficult ground to bat on. And New Zealand were doing very well in the chase. Williamson and Taylor were guiding it, but then all of a sudden the wheels came off. And it was great bowling by England. Wood, Plunkett, Ball, they were doing their thing. All of them big, tall guys who really generate a lot of bounce, bowl a lot of cross-seam deliveries, and they made it difficult. They really exploited that two-pace nature of the Cardiff pitch to great effect. And I think that was a big thing for England, for their bowling to really win them a game, because their batting was their strength. And you thought that if you could get at anything, it was their bowling. So for them to win that game was a good sign, and it looked like then they were unstoppable. Then they played Australia, and that was an interesting game. Again, Australia were in a position where they really should have got a huge score. Finch and Smith were building a good platform, but then the wheels came off again. Adil Rashid, the leg spinner, that X factor that I've talked about, getting the breakthroughs in the middle and halting that charge. Australia had an underpass score. Then England, they had a wobble at the start. They lost 3 early wickets. Stark and Hazelwood were at them, but then the rain came. When Owen Morgan and Stokes were at the crease, the rain came. That was huge. I think that really halted Australia's momentum. And then when they came back on the field, it was just all England, that aggressive brand that we've come to know, that was coming to the fore. They were blazing away, no fear. And by the time the rain came, they were well ahead. They only needed another 30 runs, I think, with about 10 overs to spare, 6 wickets in hand. I don't think Australia could argue about that result. So England going into the semis were just looking incredible. Then they're in the semi against Pakistan. You think, oh, this is going to be pretty easy for England. But Pakistan bowled them out for 210. Now, what happened here is that England were playing in almost foreign conditions. They were used to playing on these true, hard, fast pitches. They could just swing through the line, and their batsmen were just getting 300 basically more often than not. This was a little too pace, and the Pakistanis were bowling so well, and England just never quite got around that. They never quite adjusted to it. And they kept trying to pushing the ante. Then Stokes could not get away. Pakistan's bowling was excellent. And they just held out, and 210 was never going to be enough. They did get blown away in the end. I was very surprised with the ease with which Pakistan chased that down. But, when you do put 210 on the board, that takes a lot of pressure off you as a batting lineup. And England really, after winning 3 of 3, looking short odds to win, all of a sudden they go crashing out. And you see after the game, Owen Morgan says, it's disappointing that we had to use a used pitch, that it wasn't a batting paradise, that there was no home advantage for England. Well, I think that's a very lazy excuse from Owen Morgan. I don't think he necessarily intended to make that excuse, but it has been interpreted as that. When you have a look at it, yes, it was a used pitch, and yes, they have been playing on very good pitches, but it's a tournament. I think the home advantage thing in a world tournament, you need to temper that. I don't think it's the same as in a bilateral series. I think home advantage in a world tournament, there really shouldn't be that much of one. And particularly, we see now with the pitches, they're becoming more homogenous. No matter where you go, limited overs cricket, wickets are mostly the same. So I don't think the home advantage really should apply, nor that anyone. I don't feel that anyone should feel more at home on these flat pitches. But on the used pitch, it wasn't like it was a spinner's paradise for Pakistan. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like a pitch in Sri Lanka or India that was spinning square. So look, for that, I think it was a challenge and England didn't quite live up to it. Such is the nature of the Champions Trophy. You only get one chance, really. And if you fail, hey, you're out. I think the future's still very bright for England, though. I think they should still look ahead at positivity to the 2019 World Cup, which will be in England. They're just going to keep building this core. I don't think many changes are going to be happening to this squad. They're going to keep that same core. They're going to build. They have a real good shot of winning the 2019 World Cup. And this was certainly a lesson for them. Overall, I think a good tournament where they did show their dominance, but I think they need to have a bit more variety to their game. I think you can't just go out and blaze 300. There are going to be times when the pitches do favour the bowlers a bit more, and the more experience they get on those types of pitches, the more well they'll be served. I look at their team, I don't think there are any gaping holes in their team, really. It's just about them being accustomed to more variety of conditions, really. But they are looking very good with the 2019 Cup. So yes, I'm going to give England, I'm going to say a B. I think they were very good, but they didn't make the final. I think that was the minimum expectation. A B, but it's a positive B. So going on to the next team, in Group A, Bangladesh. Bangladesh made it to the semis, a historic tournament for Bangladesh. The first time they've made it to the semis of a world event. Great for Bangladesh cricket. Now, I just want to say, firstly, they were very lucky to make the semis. Make no mistake about it. Against Australia, the rain was their saviour. 15 more minutes without rain, and Australia had that match by the Duckworth-Lewis. It was going to be a rout. Australia had, I think, 100 more runs to get in 35 overs with 9 wickets in hand. They were going to win that game. There was absolutely no doubt about it. If they played that scenario out 100 times, Australia would have won 99 times. Bangladesh got very lucky to get that point, and in the end, that point was the difference. If Australia had just won that game, 2 points to them, 0 to Bangladesh, their points totals would have been reversed, and Australia would have gone through. However, Bangladesh did beat New Zealand. They knew that if they didn't win that game, they had no chance. They went out and did it, so you have to give them credit for that. I think looking at their first game against England, they just didn't get enough runs against that England team. I don't think there's any shame in that for Bangladesh. They got 300. It was a score where you're like, hey, we have to respect this team. We're not going to mock them. Bangladesh command respect now, and I think that's a great thing for them. Looking at Australia again, they got absolutely rolled with the bat. Once again, Tamim Iqbal was a lone warrior. He was fantastic. But they got rolled. The bowling, very difficult to bowl to that sort of total. And yeah, they were very lucky, as I said. Come the New Zealand game, the bowlers really stepped up in that. On that 2-pace Cardiff pitch, New Zealand really collapsed towards the end, and then they were 4 down for 20, 30, chasing that total. But then Shakib Al Hassan and Mamadullah, what a partnership that was. Unbelievable. I was getting flashbacks to Shakib and Mushfiqur's partnership at the Basin Reserve earlier in the year. Unbelievable stuff from then. They waited out that testing period and then they just pounced. And it was amazing batting. Great to see Bangladesh do it. I think in the semi, they just got overawed. I mean, they've had a bit of a hoodoo against India. They just can't quite get over the hump against them in these world tournaments. We saw the 2015 quarterfinal. They got smashed. 2016 World T20. We all know what happened. And that was ridiculous how Bangladesh didn't win that. And here, they got dealt with. 240, 250, it was never going to be enough against this Indian team. With Bangladesh, the problem was that they just lost wickets in the middle. When you lose wickets in the middle, it's a real killer. And then their bowling, I just don't think it had enough bite to it, and India made such light work of it. Looking at the tournament as a whole, I think it's a positive tournament for Bangladesh. I would give them an A. For their expectations, I think they did really, really well. I think, honestly, a lot of Bangladeshis would have hoped to get to the semis, and they did exactly that. I think getting to the finals is a step too far still, but the fact that we consider them now, team that, hey, they're likely to really compete and potentially get to the next round, I think is a great sign for them. They're developing really well as a cricket nation. I look at their team. I don't think, again, there's going to be a lot of fiddling with that team. I think that batting lineup is strong. It's young. They've got a lot of talent in that team. Sabir Rahman and Sumya Sarkar, they were disappointing. They're very talented players, but they did not score any runs in this tournament. And I think that those younger guys are going to need to help Mushfiqur, Shakib, Mahmudullah, Tamim. Tamim was amazing. The one thing I would say about Tamim is his strike rate. He wasn't scoring very quickly. And I think that in the modern one-day game, yes, he plays that anchor role, but I think he needs to speed up in the back end of his innings a bit more. Because having that sort of 80-run, 90-run strike rate when you're playing that many deliveries, when you're in for that long, I think you're missing out on some runs. You're leaving some runs out in the park. So if Tamim could improve that, he's going to be one of the best batsmen in the world. But he's a class player. I think Bangladesh, I think they need to work on their bowling. Mashrafi, is he going to be around? Those knees, they're shaky. Is he going to be around in 2 years' time? But he's a great leader, and I think Bangladesh would sorely miss him if he wasn't. Mustafizur, he's got to find a way to be effective on these types of pitches, these types of flatter pitches they're not abrasive. He's got to find a way to be effective. Can he do something other than the cutters? Is he just a one-trick pony? He's going to have to develop his game. Taskin Ahmed, is he just fast? Does he have anything else? Does he have nuance to his bowling? Because at the moment, it just looks like he bowls fast, but the accuracy really isn't there. And he's just going for a lot of runs. And the problem for Bangladesh is that they need to find these wicket-taking fast bowlers in these conditions because it's difficult for the off-spinners. As I've said, Shakib, it's difficult for him on these pitches that aren't offering any assistance. It is difficult for him. So, yes, I think Bangladesh, all in all, positive signs for them. They can look to the World Cup and they can say, hey, we have a good shot of making the semis of that tournament. So they can look at this next 2 years just developing the team. And I think they've got a good shout. There's positive signs for Bangladesh cricket. The next team from this tournament to look at is Australia. Now, Australia, it's very difficult to judge their campaign. Now, straight off the bat, I'm just going to give them a flat C. Right? It's very difficult. They only played one proper game at the end of the day. They lost it to England. Now, I can't draw much from this tournament for Australia on the field. What can you really say? What can you say? They had 2 washouts. I think the game against New Zealand, obviously 290 was a decent score by New Zealand. And Australia were 50 for 3, but Steve Smith was there. A lot of people said, hey, that was New Zealand's game. Australia was certainly not out of it. It was probably 70-30 in New Zealand's favour. But look, I think you could say, yes, New Zealand probably were going to win that game. Then you got the Bangladesh game. As I said, they were going to win that game. And then the England game. I think the problem there was just they lost wickets in the middle. It's criminal to lose wickets in the middle. And the bowling was very poor, actually. After that rain delay, they gave a lot of freebies and made it very easy for England to really get after them. So with a little bit of luck, they really should have made the semis still with 3 points, with a win, a washout, and a loss. But, that's the weather. You cannot control that. What we can take from the tournament is that the bowling side, I think they did get some bowling done. Mitchell Starc was underdone. Coming back from his injury, he was underdone. He bowled a lot of freebies. Apart from that spell at the back end against Bangladesh, that 4-for-1 spell, where he teared their tail apart, which is his specialty, he was poor in this tournament. He went for a lot of runs. He was bowling, not with that same verve we're used to see Mitchell Starc bowl with. So that is a thing for him. I think when I look at Mitchell Starc, he's probably the biggest X factor in world cricket with the ball. I think in terms of if you want a guy to get a wicket at any time on any pitch against any opposition, you'd pick Mitchell Starc. But the thing we need to see from him more to go to that next elite level as an all-time great bowler is the consistency. I think the consistency is lacking in his bowling. He needs to become more injury-free because he's really injury-prone at the moment. But look, he's obviously a wonderful talent, and I'm sure he'll get better. I think the other thing about Australia, their bowling, I think the whole Maxwell head bowling as the fifth bowler, that's not going to cut it. And in the modern one-day cricket, they really can't get away with that. I really think that's not the way forward for them. They're going to have to find another fifth bowling option, I think. Whether that's bringing in an extra fast bowler, I think they're going to have to stick to their strength and play with five. Probably the all-rounder, whether that's Marcus Stoinis, John Hastings, James Faulkner. I think that's a better op than the Maxwell head tandem of off-spin as the fifth bowler. With the batting, there's not much to say. Most of the team didn't bat. Really I can't say much, apart from the fact that in the Australia game, they wilted. After a good start, they built the platform, they wilted. And that was not great to see. But look, Australia's got a strong batting lineup. I think they need to look at that middle order. It does look a little bit dodgy. I think that they need to figure out, okay, is Moises Henriques really a long-term solution at number 4? I have my doubts. They really have to look at that. Will Maxwell ever become a consistent performer? That's another thing they have to look at. But really, I think it's very difficult to talk a lot about Australia on the field. I think the biggest thing was off the field, quite frankly, with the pay dispute with the board, which is still ongoing. And I find it amazing how it has gone this far. I find it absolutely incredible. The fact that we're talking about potential bans for players from the Ashes. I mean, what is going on? I think with this situation where neither party is going, think about who has more power in this. The players have all the power because the players, if they don't get contracted, hey, they become freelancers. They can play for whoever they want. They can do their own thing. And the Australian Cricket Board is stuck. What do they have then? They lose their biggest assets. So really, I see that the Cricket Board is going to have to buckle eventually to the players' demands. But I really hope this gets done because it would be disappointing for this to really encroach on the summer. For the Ashes to be tarnished in any way would be a really bad look. And not to mention, Australia is going to tour Bangladesh for the first time in a decade for test matches. And, since the last tour when Bangladesh was so bad that Jason Gillespie was able to get a double century against them, I think Bangladesh have a genuine shot at winning a test match against Australia now in Bangladesh. So that would be very disappointing if that was not to go ahead because of this pay dispute. So look, hopefully that gets done. I think the players have all the power and the board really need to just compromise with them at the end of the day. And finally, in Group A, we're looking at New Zealand. New Zealand, I think this tournament was a case of back to reality. We saw from 2013 to 2015, that honeymoon period under McCullum, where New Zealand were really the best team in one-day cricket in the world. They were sensational. England really copied that brand. They mimicked that brand, fearless at the top, just ultra aggressive. You could argue almost reckless. I think in the World Cup final, Brendan McCullum 2015, that was reckless the way he played. But that was the way they were playing. That's what got them that far. And I think without McCullum, that aura has slowly disappeared. I think New Zealand had an aura under him. I think that's slowly gone. You have to remember, for the longest time, New Zealand had been a mediocre team who punch above their weight in world tournaments, but they're just a team that, they're always underdogs. They're a very middling team, like a 7th or 8th best in the world. They've always been a middling team. Their success recently has been above their norm. At the end of the day, it's back to reality for New Zealand. They're a competitive team, but they're not one of the best in the world. And I don't think New Zealand fans can be disappointed about that. they still have good players. This is just back to reality for New Zealand. I look at the games that they played, you know, obviously, I think that the Australia game, Kane Williamson, what a class player, amazing innings, and the bowling was doing its thing, Milne up front. Unfortunately, the rain came. Against England, they really capitulated. They were looking good to chase that, but they capitulated in the middle. After the bowlers had, in the end, restricted England reasonably well. And then in the last game against Bangladesh, really, that total was so poor, to collapse in the way they did. And then, obviously, it's always going to be difficult to, you know, to really to defend a total like that. And after the 4 for 30, I think the biggest thing for New Zealand was, where was that X factor for them in the middle overs? That if they had a leg spinner, Ish Sodhi, I was very surprised to see he was left out of their squad. A leg spinner can do wonderful things, pick wickets against the run of play. On when the batsmen are dominating, the leg spinner provides that possibility, and I think they were missing that. New Zealand. I think if you look at their tournament as a whole, I've got to give them probably. I'm going to give them a D. They were very poor. Ultimately, they didn't win a game. And they had an extreme over reliance on Kane Williamson. Lesser extent, Ross Taylor, although I thought he got some starts, but he didn't score quickly, and he threw his wicket away just as he was getting going. He was so dependent on Kane Williamson, 350s in the tournament. One of them he converted into 100. Unbelievable player. One of the best in the world. New Zealand with him will always be able to stay competitive, but he needs more help. Martin Guptill was very disappointing in this tournament. He's been amazing in one-day cricket for the last few years. He was disappointing. But I think the biggest thing was that middle order for New Zealand. I think Jimmy Neesham, if you have a look at him, if you have a look at Corey Anderson, if you have a look at Neil Broom, those three did not contribute. And if you look at all their batting efforts, they had big collapses after that Taylor-Williamson axis. And that was the killer for them, losing those wickets in the middle, and they don't really have that guy down the order to just explode. I was a bit surprised that Colin de Gronholm never got a go, because he does provide that explosion down the order. Yes, Corey Anderson, but honestly, since his injury issues, we haven't seen the same Corey Anderson that burst onto the scene a few years ago. I think with their bowling, again, they didn't have that attacking spinning option. I think Mitchell Santner's a good bowler, but again, he's an off spinner. I think the leg spinner would have helped them a lot more. I also think Tim Southey, and Trent Boult in these type of conditions, if it's not swinging, it's difficult for them to create a lot. They're not out and out pace like Adam Milne. If it's not swinging for them, it's difficult. It is difficult. So that is the thing that New Zealand could add a bit of versatility, I think. They could adapt a bit better to the conditions with their bowling attack. But it was a very disappointing tournament for New Zealand. I think it's back to reality for them. And, I think they have to be realistic. I think of all the teams coming out of this group, their outlook is the least positive, because they are so reliant on Kane Williamson. And I can't see them really bridging that gap anytime soon. They've had a great run, but unfortunately, I think they're just going to be grinding it out. And we're going to marvel in the brilliance of Kane Williamson, but it's going to be a tough old slog, I think, for New Zealand in the coming years. So that wraps up Group A. Now on to Group B. Now this group had, I think, a bit more to talk about. This group turned out to be something. This was a very enthralling group where each team won a game in the first 2 match days. So basically, going into the last round, you're talking about knockout games, quarterfinals. It was an incredible spectacle. Another reason why the Champions Trophy, great tournament. The fact that you can have these quarterfinals in the group stage is just amazing. I thought, it was a great group, very exciting group. To India, first and foremost, India were, as always, pretty dominant for the most part. The funny thing about this tournament for India is they only won 3 out of 2 games. Sorry, they only won 3 out of 5 games. They won 3, lost 2. That's 60%. Now, you wouldn't think that based on what you were hearing, but the thing for India is when you look at this tournament, I think, you look at their first game against Pakistan, they just bullied them with the bat, absolutely bullied them. You look at the game against Sri Lanka, I think the bowling was found out a bit in that game. Brilliant batting from Sri Lanka, obviously, but the bowling was found out. I think against South Africa, they really responded. Really fantastic effort in the field. Incredible stuff. I think their energy in the field was the key to that. A lot of runouts in that innings. And then you look at it against Bangladesh, they really steamrolled them, absolutely steamrolled them. And then against Pakistan in the final, it was absolutely shocking. I thought the way that they lost, they got thrashed, absolutely thrashed. That was bizarre. And, it just made me think, how did that happen? Now I'm having a look at India as a whole. I think that their batting is outrageously good. I think their batting is so strong. You have a look at that top three, Rohit, Shikhar Dhawan, and Virat Kohli. I mean, it's an incredible top three. Their batting is so, so good. I think their bowling is good too. I think it's good. I don't think their batting can really be to blame for much that happened. They obviously had an off day in the final, but at the end of the day, their bowling conceded 338. So you really got to look at that as where they lost the game. Now, the bowling was very much hot and cold. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar was excellent. He bowls a length that just cramps the batsman. It is so difficult to get in the way. I thought Jasprit Bumrah was hot and cold in this tournament. He does have a problem with the no balls. He does tend to waver a little bit from time to time, but he's a young guy. He's so talented. In another couple of years, he will develop. I'm sure of that. I think the biggest problem for them was the spinners. I think Ravichandran Ashwin and Ravindra Jadeja, they were very disappointing. They didn't take wickets and they got thrashed. That was the killer for India, that they couldn't control the innings through the middle, that they weren't taking wickets in the middle overs. And that really was the problem against Sri Lanka and Pakistan. They did not take wickets in the middle. So these teams just absolutely launched. There was nothing stopping them from getting those runs. And look, as I said before, I think the off spinner is a defensive option. The off spinner is just becoming an endangered species in one-day cricket now. I think that where it's at is the leg spinner. They've got Amit Mishra, they've got Kuldeep Yadav, who they are using in this West Indies tour. They need to try out these leg spinners because they're the more aggressive options. I think you need the leg spinner. I wonder about Ashwin's real value to the team in the limit overs team. He's not very athletic in the field. As a batsman, is he really a one-day batsman? I don't think so. And bowling, he's just not taking wickets. I think Jadeja, you could say yes, even though he's not necessarily taking wickets and going for a lot of runs. He's a brilliant fielder, one of the best in the world, and he could hit runs quickly. So he's still a valuable player, but I'm not sure Ashwin should really be in the one-day team. I think that's the biggest thing for India. To be able to take wickets in the middle overs is going to make them just incredible. I think the signs are still very good for India. I give this tournament a B for them. Their bowling did have a few cracks to it. I think their batting, as usual, imperious. I think the one thing they have to look at is Dhoni and Yuvraj. They're getting on. They need to groom a couple of potential replacements in case things go wrong for those two in the next 2 years before the next World Cup. I'm looking at Rishabh Pant, Manish Pandey, those kind of guys. They need to groom them so that they have more of a pool of players with international experience that they can take to that tournament. Because I'm not sure Dinesh Karthik is the answer. I'm not sure that he should be the one who's the backup, another older player. I think they need to get a bit more youth in there. So apart from that, I think Hardik's batting. Hardik is probably the find for them in the tournament. I think he's a player with X factor. He needs to develop consistency, but I think he's an X factor with the bat and the ball and in the field. He's a very good potential player. Still very raw, but I think India have got a great talent there, and I think the future looks bright for India at the end of the day. Yes, they lost this tournament, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went on to win the 2019 World Cup. They have a very good team under Kohli. They have an aura about them. They have an aura. I think teams are a little bit intimidated by them, and they are going to be very difficult to beat still. You look at it, Pakistan and Sri Lanka played basically the best they could play to beat India in those games. That's the truth. So the future is very bright for India. On to the next team, Pakistan. Pakistan, oh Pakistan. I mean, can you believe it? The story of the tournament. I was just absolutely enthralled by Pakistan. I couldn't take my eyes off them in the knockouts. I could not take my eyes off those games. They were incredible to watch. What a story it was. After that first game, humiliated with the same flaws we usually see, the fielding, the running between the wickets, the slow batting without the power hitting. Shocking from Pakistan. But to go from that against South Africa, brilliant in the field, choked them in the middle, against Sri Lanka, outrageously good in those middle overs. Yes, they have to tank some shocking fielding from Sri Lanka to get through, but in the end, it was the best thing for the tournament because Pakistan's bowling had 10 times the potential of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka were not going to beat England in the semi, so Pakistan getting through, that was a blessing for them. And then against England, wow, with the ball, wow, again, destroying them in the middle overs. And then I think the confidence they got with the bat, just chasing that down with such ease, then carrying that on to the innings against India, just 338. Where did that come from? This is Pakistan, a team that we thought, are they going to score 300? Are they capable? And all of a sudden they scored 338 in the final. It just only Pakistan. It's just incredible. And then with the ball, wow, Muhammad Amir, wow, that was spine tingling. The hairs on the back of your neck raised from that. I mean, wow, that was exhilarating cricket at its best. That Muhammad Amir spell. I mean, that was jaw dropping entertainment. It was just beautiful. It was beautiful. And obviously the scenes, how much it meant for Pakistan, it was amazing. I loved seeing a team that it really meant so much to. Pakistan they're always underdogs. They always play with such a passion, with such a flair. It means more to them than just a game for Pakistan. It is more to them. And that's what I love about it. That's why I love cricket. It's more than just the game. It brings people together. It's a huge thing for the nation. And I just love the beauty of that. It was fantastic. I think if I have a look at that Pakistan team, they're not the best team in the world. They went on a run. The momentum was with them, and they just ran with it. Incredible stuff. Muhammad Amir, I think was really at his absolute best. That if he can bowl like that every time, wow. Because I think sometimes he does bowl a bit within himself. I feel he doesn't hit the deck as hard. I feel it's a little bit sort of one pace with Muhammad Amir, but you could see he was really, really pushing it through in that final. Amazing. The find of the tournament, Hassan Ali, what a bowler. What a bowler. He's skitty, he's deceptively quick. The way he's able to just nip the ball into the right-hander away from the left-hander. I mean, everyone talks about the ball to Parnell, but that ball to Kusal Mendes, that was outrageous. And that was so crucial. Kusal Mendes was batting so well. I think 100 was there for the taking for him. Hassan Ali getting that wicket, just that prodigious nip back into him and bowling him, that really halted Sri Lanka's charge. Sri Lanka would have got a big total, I'm sure, with Kusal Mendes. And that was really the clincher for Pakistan, getting Kusal Mendes at that time. Hassan Ali was a joy to watch him. The celebration, I absolutely loved it. It was incredible. And he's a great bowler. I watched him at the SCG in the summer, last summer for Australia, and he got 5 wickets, but he didn't bowl in that way. He was going for runs. I think the way he bowled was something else. How it was so difficult for people to get in the way. You have a look at him. Wow, unbelievable stuff. Shadab Khan, another one. Still raw, but you look at him, he's a great fielder, a leg spinner, an aggressive option, and he can hit the ball as well. He's 18 years old, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant for Pakistan cricket. The way that even Ruman Reis came in for that one game and got a couple of wickets against England. Pakistan have so much depth in their bowling, it's ridiculous. I think jettisoning Wahab Riaz and Ahmed Shahzad was the best thing that they could do. Those two, I mean, Wahab Riaz has been terrible for a long time. He bowls amazing spells, but in between them, there's a lot of rubbish. And recently, there haven't even been those great spells. It's just been a lot of rubbish. And Ahmed Shahzad bats with a fear. He doesn't rotate the strike. He bats outrageously slowly, and he's not a great fielder. So I think jettisoning those two, bringing in Fakhar, I mean, what a find. I thought that with Shajil, that investigation going on with him, that was a huge blow because he was a good, aggressive hitter at the top. But now it looks like he's not going to be missed with Fakhar coming in there. What an innings in the final. Unbelievable how he improved on his score in every innings. This was his debut. He made his debut in this tournament, and he did that well. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I think him being there helps Azhar. Azhar's a class batsman, but meaning that Azhar, the pressure's off him. He doesn't have to go after everything. He can just play his normal game. I think it's a good balance. And I think they just played without fear. Muhammad Hafiz, we've seen for a long time. He's batted in a way that's a bit inhibited, 60-70 strike rate. He goes out and blazes away that 50. It's just incredible from Pakistan. Absolutely incredible. What a story it was. What a story it was to see Pakistan win that. It was enthralling. I loved it. Well done to Pakistan. You absolutely deserve it. And what can I say? The future looks a lot brighter. I think Pakistan, really getting rid of a lot of average players, that they did. Not to mention, I forgot to mention Junaid Khan, he's back. You look at it in the last year or two, they've added a lot of players. Muhammad Amir's come back. Junaid Khan's come back from his suspension as well. Shadab Khan's come into the team. Hassan Ali's come into the team. Fakar has now come into the team. They really have got a lot more pieces than they did before. The team's looking strong, and the biggest thing is their bowling looks great. That is when Pakistan's at its best. It's their bowling. And if their bowling can bowl the way they have now decent batting. Decent batting. It's not great yet, but it's decent. Look, do I think they're going to win the World Cup in 2019? Probably not. But look, they have a chance to do something good. I think Pakistan, before this tournament, it was looking like, ooh, where is Pakistan cricket heading? I think all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's a breath of fresh air, new life for Pakistan cricket. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And hopefully, the biggest thing I just want to see is Pakistan to return playing cricket to Pakistan. I know, obviously, it's no, you can't blame anyone for not touring at the end of the day. But look, if we can take little steps, slow baby steps to getting it there, apparently there's going to be a World 11 playing a couple of friendly games there later in the year. Hopefully that happens. Baby steps, maybe some smaller teams first, the Zimbabwe's, the Afghanistans. We've already seen them go to Pakistan and play. Maybe the smaller teams first come in little by little. I think it'll be a huge thing because you saw the pictures when Sarfraz Ahmed was in his home on the street. So many people care about Pakistan cricket. Can you imagine that in most other places? Probably not. Absolutely unbelievable. Pakistan, always an exciting team to watch. And the future looks a lot better for them. Obviously, I'm sure there's going to be, in a few months' time, we'll be talking about, a problem with Pakistan, such as the nature of them. It's so up and down, but it's always entertaining, and hopefully things go well for them. I think the future is a lot brighter than it looked a month ago, that's for sure, with Pakistan. So on to South Africa now. South Africa, very disappointing tournament, straight off the bat. Sorry, I forgot to grade Pakistan, didn't I? A+, A++++. The highest grade you can give them. Wow, unbelievable. South Africa, I'm going to give them an F straight away. This team had this is like criminal for them to not get out of the group. Absolutely criminal with the talent they had at the top. From top to bottom, unbelievable. I am sad for South Africa. They just cannot put it together. They didn't even wait to the knockouts to choke this time. They choked in the group stage. I'm thinking, what is going on here with South Africa? It is ridiculous. What on earth is going on? What on earth is going on with them? It just boggles the mind. It really does boggle the mind. I struggle to put it into words. When you have a look at their games, against Sri Lanka, they won comfortably. Then against Pakistan, that batting, wow, that was shocking. And then against India, what was that? The capitulation. The runouts just epitomized that innings, just the capitulation. Two shocking capitulations they had with the bat. It was so poor. For me, even in the game against Sri Lanka, there were signs. If Sri Lanka were a more experienced team, if they'd kept their heads screwed on, I think they would have chased that down. It was the inexperience in that team, the rashness of some of those players that really cost Sri Lanka the win there. So South Africa were completely underwhelming in this tournament. I think they played with a fear. They played with a fear that they seem to always do, a fear of not losing rather than let's go out and try and win. I think that was exhibited in the opening partnerships. I think Quinton de Kock and Hashim Amla, they were very inhibited. I thought Quinton de Kock, particularly, one of the best batsmen in the world, electric player, the way he played, he was so inhibited. And the starts they got off to in each of their innings, they batted first in all the games. They were getting off to 4 and over starts in the first 15. Yeah, they didn't lose any wickets, but it was overly conservative. And then what happened through the middle is they got choked. The way I look at it, AB de Villiers, their captain, there are huge question marks surrounding him. It's not ideal for a team when this guy, you don't know his future. I think he's going to retire. I think it's ridiculous, the situation with AB de Villiers. Really, he hasn't played a test since early 2016. Look, he clearly does not want to play test cricket. I feel like he's distracted. He's off. He looks off. His mind is elsewhere. Look, the whole thing with AB de Villiers, with him, the whole picking and choosing test series is ridiculous. Either play them all or retire. It looks like he's going to retire now. Look, it's a sad day for cricket because AB de Villiers is one of the premier batsmen in the world, and for him to retire at 32 from test cricket, it's not a good sign. it's like, hey, welcome to the age of 2020 leagues, 2020 mercenaries. AB de Villiers, I think, wants to prolong his career. He's had these injury issues. We saw it in the IPL. He had injury issues. He's had injury issues for a long time. Not only carrying the South African team, metaphorically, but he's had to keep at times. He's had to do it all: captain, keep, and bat. He's had a tough workload, but I think he's thinking, I'm going to prolong my career because I'm injury prone so that I can play in these 2020 leagues as long as I can. I think he's going to retire from international cricket after the 2019 World Cup. It's very disappointing the way I see it. This is how cricket's going to go. Players are going to do this now. Players, when they get into their 30s, they're going to think, you know what? Test cricket's grueling. It's a lot easier for me to play. It's a lot less strenuous for me to play 2020. And it's a sad time. That's how I look at it. I think AB de Villiers, if he really wanted to, he could play Test cricket. But I think he's looking at it as a long-term perspective. I mean, you can't blame the guy. He has a family, that he wants to get the most out of his cricketing potential to maximize his earnings. But it is sad. And I think ultimately these 2020 leagues are talking, money talks. And I think the ICC will have to really, one, provide context to Test matches, as I've already said, but two, they're going to have to, increase Test match. Boards are going to have to increase, match fees for playing Test matches. I think because otherwise, it's just non-competitive with these 2020 leagues. There's going to be no question in countries like South Africa, West Indies, where the domestic currency is so poor, they're going to look at it and think, wait, I could just play in these 2020 leagues, getting US dollars. I think these home boards. I think the ICC has to help some of these boards with not as much financial strength. To really be able to keep their players. We see South Africa losing so many players to coal-packed deals. So I think that is something that really has to happen urgently. I got a bit sidetracked there, but looking at their batting, they were timid. They have such an explosive lineup. I think JP Duminy has overstayed his welcome. He hasn't done a lot recently in either format. He's there admittedly because he's coloured, part of the transformation targets. He's not lifting his weight. He is not pulling his weight. I think that's one player they really need to look at. I think if you look at the bowling, I think that they are so dependent on Imran Tahir. If he doesn't have a great day, it's not looking good. I think Wayne Parnell is a liability. He goes for a lot of runs. I think, again, Kagiso Rabada needs to develop his one-day bowling. I know he's one of the top 5 bowlers on the ODI rankings, but sometimes he can go for a few runs. He does need to develop a bit more nuance, I think, to his ODI bowling. But obviously, he's so young. He's one of the most talented bowlers in the world. I'm sure he will do it. But yeah, so for South Africa, it's not so much the fact that there's something lacking from the team. It's just the mindset. How are they ever going to be able to get out of this mindset in these types of tournaments? I don't know when it's ever going to happen. So that's the biggest question for South Africa. The outlook for them, just in general, looks strong. They've got such wonderful talent. But in terms of World Cups, do I trust them? Absolutely not. And I don't know how they're going to remedy the problem, but they're going to have to, right? AB de Villiers just dreamed to win the World Cup. Well, they got to remedy it for him to be able to do that. So yeah, with South Africa, it's just that mental hoodoo. It's just, can they get over it? They've got the talent. Can they get over that hurdle? Yeah. So on to the last team, Sri Lanka. Now, as a Sri Lankan fan, I have to say that this tournament was surprising. I didn't think we would win a game, quite frankly. Beating India was quite surreal. I thought that was the game where they had the least amount of chance of winning. Chasing down that total so critically was great to see. Danushka Gunatilaka, Kusal Mendes, Sela Gunaratne, Kusal Pereira, Angela Matthews, they all played so well. But after that, I was very disappointed that they couldn't get to the semis. I think they were poor in the field against Pakistan. Really, Pakistan, it almost seemed like they were trying to give the game to Sri Lanka. Tisra Pereira dropping that sitter. Pakistan, come on. You need to have a monument of Tisra Pereira, I think, in Lahore. Please, can we get that arranged? Because, wow, he won them the tournament. That was a ridiculous drop catch. Felt sorry for Lassit Marling after that. And in the end, that defined the tournament, which was unfortunate. But I think, honestly, the potential of the team, with the lack of bowling quality, wasn't going to threaten England in the semi. So I am glad that Pakistan got through. But this tournament, I think what it showed for Sri Lanka, I think the batting has potential. I think they need to stick with these batsmen, Danushka Gunatilaka, Niroshan Dickwella, Kusal Mendes. Asela Gunaratne, Angelo Matthews, these guys are the core. Kusal Mendes. I mean, wow, wow. He is one of the most talented players I've ever seen. The shots he plays, they make you gasp. It's just that audacious. He's so tiny. The shots he plays, he is just fearless. He is just so aggressive. He's a joy to watch. He needs to work on his consistency, obviously, but I feel he's getting there. And Sri Lanka's hopes really are pinned on him. He is just so good. He has the potential to be a transcendent player. You know, what a player he could be. Asela Gunaratne, he's 31. The way he performed, it's unusual for a Sri Lankan coming out of that domestic system at that age to be as good as he is. He's another great find. Look, Dinesh Chandimal, at the end of the day, he's done a lot of great things. I think the criticism that he gets from some quarters is a bit much. You have to remember, this guy has 8 test hundreds. He's been a good player for us for many years. But look, at the end of the day, the game has bypassed him. He hasn't kept up with the game. Scoring at 70 strike rate is not going to cut it. His career strike rate is 75. That's not good enough. He does not rotate the strike at all. And at number 4, in such a key position, I don't think we can have him there anymore. So yes, he has been dropped for the first 2 games against Zimbabwe. I think he should still be around, but I think he needs a wake-up call. He needs to develop his game, quite simply. Strike rotation is a big thing, and also just staying calm, because after he faces a few dot balls, you usually see a kamikaze run, or just an absolute hoik. He doesn't really handle that pressure, build up of pressure well, but he's a very talented player, and, there is a bit of a lost generation for Sri Lanka that really should have taken over from the Mahelas, the Kumas, the Dilshans. You look at Laira Tirimana, Dinesh Chandimal, Thisara Pereira, those type of characters, they just have not developed. They played hundreds of ODIs, and none of them are really reliable performers, which is very disappointing. And this team is so reliant on Angelo Matthews. Without him, they crumble. Just look at that South African chase. If he was there, I think they would have chased it down. They crumble without him. He is the rock. He is the Iceman. He is the Iceman. He's a great player. Even if he doesn't bowl, he's so crucial to the team. But really, this team is still ailed by inconsistency with the bat. The batting has potential, but it's not coming together often enough. And then the fielding, we know it's an age-old problem. Yes, they're trying to remedy it, but this kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. The bowling, it lacks penetration. It's defensive. Where is the aggressive leg spinner? Gunaratne is such a defensive bowling option. They need to pick these leg spinners. Just risk it with the Sundakans. Risk it. Yes, he may go for some runs, but he can take wickets. You have to take wickets in the middle order. Sri Lanka just don't do that. Lasith Malinga is on his last legs. I love the fact that he's given it his all, but he is on his last legs. I think Nuwan Pradeep bowled very well. I think he was the best bowler for Sri Lanka in the tournament, but he is really the only one who's showing promise. They need to look at guys like Dushmantha Chameera, Lairu Kumara. Can they develop some consistency to their bowling to match their obvious raw talent? That's another question. Pakistan, you have a look at the way their bowlers bowl. I think, how does Sri Lanka? It's just bizarre. Like, Pakistan don't have an amazing domestic circuit. How do they produce these bowls? But it boggles the mind. But the Sri Lankan bowlers, they need to pick these aggressive options, because picking these defensive bowlers isn't going to cut it in modern one-day cricket. But yes, Sri Lanka, there's still a long way to go, but there is something there. I think the biggest thing is that the infrastructure, which I'm sure I'll talk about in a later podcast, is obviously not there, and that's holding them back. And the usual shenanigans with the board, the whole, the sports minister coming out after the tournament saying, oh, the players aren't fit, Malinga having a riposte to that, then that whole, hearing into Malinga, that disciplinary committee, and him getting a suspended 1 year ban. With Sri Lanka cricket, what goes on? You can't do anything but laugh. It's hilarious. I think the way things work to a lot of us is just how, these things could surely be done behind closed doors, right? But the scapegoats, no one wants to accept blame. Everyone wants to find a scapegoat. You can't help but laugh. It is comical. But at the end of the day, it's a big part of why Sri Lanka just, it's an unnecessary stress for a lot of, Sri Lankan cricketers these days. You should have to deal with this, but Sri Lankan cricketers always seem to. But on the whole, I'd give Sri Lanka, honestly, I'd give them a B in terms of the expectations. I would have given them an A if they got to the semi, but that was disappointing in the end not to get to the semi. But there's potential with the batting. I think they need to groom some more aggressive bowling options. Keep diligently trying to get the fielding better. The future looks a bit brighter than it did, but I think still Sri Lanka are going to struggle for a long time. They're going to have to just find a couple more really, really good players because how you replace what they had, Kumar, Mahela, Dilshan, you know, all of them with over 10,000 ODI runs. It's very difficult, for any team, let alone a country like Sri Lanka that doesn't have a great infrastructure. But I think Sri Lanka is just about keeping the core of batsmen together, you know, letting them develop, try to get some consistency in the batting. That's all that can really be asked for. So yeah, that that wraps it up, doesn't it? Yes. So yeah, that was my team review for all the teams' campaigns from the Champions Trophy. I hope you enjoyed it. The next podcast, I believe, will be on Sunday. I'm going to go back to the current events in cricket. At the moment, we've got the India-West Indies series, the Sri Lanka-Zimbabwe series, the South Africa-England tests are coming up. You got the Women's World Cup. There's a lot of cricket going on. So I'll be talking about all that stuff, and we'll be doing it on a more day-by-day basis, hopefully. If at worst, every second day, I'll try to get the podcast up. But yes, I will be looking at more current events in cricket and just analyzing them, what's happened in the day gone by. So hopefully you enjoy that content. Hopefully you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, you can check out the links to our platforms. We've got SoundCloud, we've got YouTube, and now the podcast has been approved on iTunes. So you can check it out there as well. You can check out the Twitter page, which is the centralized hub, where you can look at all the links there. You can get all the links to all the podcasts there. So yes, that's all from me for now. So until next time, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.